Welcome to another episode of UCRD Reviews. So today I have yet another review that doesn't actually have a figure in the box. This one's the Robot Spirits Effect Parts Set version anime. So if you recall in my Zeon weapon set, kind of toward the end of the video, I actually said it'd probably be a cool idea if they actually had an effect part set as well. And it looks like they thought the same thing, because this is exactly what we got. Now this set works with the figures from Mobile Suit Gundam, and so we can actually, you'll see some of them on the front there. You'll see you'll have the Gundam there, and this is some of the stuff you get in the set. But on the back here, you have a bunch of really cool poses that you can make from the anime. The connector pieces, which we'll get into a little bit later, and you get a really neat bazooka firing effect, some explosions. And on the side here, it'll show the connector pieces. So this is a connector for the Gundam and the GM, the Zaku, the Dom, and the Gelgoog, regular and Char's type. Although it only says Char's, which is kind of interesting. It has compatibility, or recommended compatibilities, for the effects that are up here, all the explosions and whatnot. And that's the Gundam, the GM, the Zaku, the Dom, and Char's Gelgoog. And then it has recommendations for the bazooka firing effect, which is the GM Kai, Heavy Gundam, and the Alex. Now, it's a cool idea that they did this, kind of like the weapon set, but let's take a look at it and see if they did it correctly. Now that we've got everything open here, we can take a look at everything one by one. So the first thing I want to start with is the bazooka firing effect that you get. You don't get many of these with the figures. This one looks really, really nice. You have the fire here, the actual warhead, the smoke trails, and then you have like a darker kind of rear exhaust piece that goes on the back of the bazooka. And again, this is compatible with many different bazooka types. The GM Kai, the Heavy Gundam, and the Gundam Alex. The thing I don't like about this piece in particular is you do have some bad seam lines here. If you can see them, you can even see them on the inside, kind of. It'll even pull apart a little bit. But it's kind of a darker color, so it's not... Well, yeah, it is kind of noticeable. Who am I trying to kid? But the front piece looks really, really good. I mean, this one just looks awesome. So you do have some little explosion effects, little pink explosion effects, because everything in Mobile Suit Gundam was pink. They are on a ball joint, and they use a standard peg. So really, really cool. You can put them on like shields and stuff. You have a second larger one, same idea, on a peg. This one I don't like as much. It looks like a sea urchin, just because of the little pieces here. They're not sharp like they are in this setup. So it looks like something that crawls along the ocean floor, not necessarily an explosion on a shield. But you do get this little piece here. You have a stabby effect. So this is the rear part of it. This goes into the beam saber, and you put this up against the mobile suit that is being horrendously stabbed, and then you have the rest of the effect part in a separate piece. This connects to a standard peg. This can go into a backpack thruster to kind of simulate it coming out of here. These little yellow pieces, these little zappy pieces, are incredibly fragile. Incredibly fragile. One of the most fragile things I've ever seen in Robot Spirits. They are hard as a rock, and they will snap right off. So don't do that. Don't throw these around. You get a big giant explosion effect that is same idea, ball jointed with a regular peg. This one's kind of heavy. You do get a smaller, lighter one. One really cool thing about these is you can actually pop these pegs out, and this one even has multiple holes in it, so that you can use these little pegs. No, they're not joysticks. They are little tiny pegs. And I'll demonstrate it later, but just to explain it, you'll remove the head of a mobile suit, say the GM, and then you'll remove the peg that goes inside the torso, remove it completely, replace it with this. I think it's this one. Maybe it's this one. Replace it with this, and then the explosion effect will completely replace the head, making it look like the head has been blown off. Now these little pieces, let me line them up here. You'll see they're marked with a 1 and a 2. 2 is slightly larger for, I believe, the Gundam and the GM, and then 1 is for mobile suits like the Zaku. And then you have big old slashy effect. It's quite large. Looks really, really good. You have a new type of connector here, which I'll go over in just a second. It's also on a ball joint. You have these two pieces here, which simulate a mobile suit being shot straight through. So one piece will be connected to the front, one connected to the rear, making it look like it's a continuous shot. Same new connector on a ball joint. And you have a smaller slashing effect as well that looks really, really good in yellow. Now, you do have this little piece. This is a peg removal tool so that you can kind of slide it in here and remove the pegs easier than trying to do it with your fingers. So this is kind of handy to have. And the reason you want to have a tool like that is because with pieces like this, so this is the Zaku 2's connector, so you'll actually split this piece in half. And you want to be careful with it. It is rigid plastic. You don't want to snap it in a weird way and break it. You'll snap it in half, put it around the mobile suit. Again, I'll demonstrate later. And then you have a front and rear connector piece. And so you can slide these in here like that. And you can do, one in the back like so. And for some of these, it's easier to take the peg off, put the peg in, and then pop the effect piece in, but it just kind of depends on what you're trying to do. So this is, again, the Zaku 1 molded specifically for the body of the Zaku 2. You have one for the Gelgoog here, different shape, and a big giant one for the Dom, and lastly one for the GM and Gundam. So now let's take a look at what these look like on the mobile suits. Alright, so we're going to pick on a poor unsuspecting GM here real quick just to go through some of the pieces and how they work. So firstly, with effect parts like this, real simple ones, you can attach them kind of anywhere you want. For example, on the shield here, it'll actually peg in and look quite nice, and you can rotate it around, do whatever you want with it, which is pretty cool. This also works with, let me grab it here, larger effect parts like such. So you can do a lot with these, and the pegs are removable. Look at that, unintended things happening on camera. So one thing that's a big gimmick in this set is the connectors here. Real easy. This is the GM one. The way this will work is you want the open slots facing up. So basically, I can demonstrate here. This is the peg to one of the effect part pieces. It kind of drops in. If I can get it to. There it goes. So it'll drop in like that. So to attach it, you just put the front end around, the rear end connected to the front end. Really simple. And you're good to go. Now I find that it is easier to remove the pegs for a lot of these and then just attach the piece to it like so. And then you have a GM that's being slashed to death. Pretty cool. And you can, again, modify them however you want. Now, another piece that's quite different requires the removal of the head. And what you'll do is remove the head, take the neck joint out, and throw it back in here. And from there, I've attached the number 1 peg. I think I had it backwards in the intro. The number 1 peg goes to the GM and Gundam, and number 2 goes to the Zaku. I've attached it here in the middle, removed the little smaller rectangular peg, and then I find it pretty easy that you can just snap it right on there and make it look like his head is being blown off. So there's a lot you can do with it. Where's my other piece here? There it is. So this one can do the exact same thing. You have a single peg. This one has 3 different positions you can put it on. So there's a lot you can do with the set. Very, very modular. And so now that I've kind of covered the basics here, let me put this poor little guy's head back on. We can go through and kind of demonstrate some of the pieces and what they look like on the mobile suits. So this is the Gelgoog cannon with the GM. This is the large slashing effect here. And one thing to note, the Gelgoog cannon and the high mobility Gelgoog cannot utilize the rearward slot for effect parts because of the backpack. The standard Gelgoog can use both front and rear parts. But this is the slashing effect attached. I think it looks quite good. It hangs off a little bit from the mobile suit. A lot of these effect parts do, but this one looks pretty good depending on the angle that you have it at. So I like this one. Alright, so next up is Char's Rick Dom, utilizing the Dom connector piece, and he's being shot to death by Amuro. I think that's how Mobile Suit Gundam ended. I may not be remembering correctly, but it looks really, really good. This is, I think, one of my favorite damaged or destruction pieces. I like this better than the slashing effects. I mean, it looks good from like almost any angle. It looks like he's just being shot straight through. The effect parts look really, really nice. They don't look very goofy at all. And I mean, you can even go to a straight like side profile, and it looks good still. So I really like this one. This is probably the one I'm going to use the most. And it's compatible with all the other mobile suits as well, of course. So we have the Wetlands Zaku fighting the GM, and in a very Gundam 0080-ish pose, where the GM's getting his head blown off and the Zaku 2's getting run through by the beam saber. Both pieces work really well. The head explosion piece looks nice. You do have the alternate smaller one as well. And the beam saber effect parts work really well, especially on the Zaku because of the angle of the backpack. The effect part looks good only at certain angles, of course, because the rear piece kind of sticks out of the Zaku quite a bit, just because of how it's set in there. But if you get it at the right angle, it looks really, really good. Again, I can't stress enough that beam saber piece, both of them are really fragile. It's probably not one of the pieces I'll be using a lot, but it does look really nice. One thing I did forget to mention a minute ago, this piece is actually ball jointed, so you can angle the impact area however you want, which is kind of cool. And the other piece, of course, is ball jointed as well. So one thing I wanted to show real quick is when you have a piece in here like this, it's kind of hard to remove out of there. So with your tool, there's an opening on the bottom, and you can actually push the piece right out, which is pretty cool. And then finally here we have the Heavy Gundam using the bazooka firing effect, as well as the smaller explosion effect for the shield. This is my favorite thing out of the set. If you recall, in my Xeon weapon set, I actually said that I wanted a bazooka firing effect, and that's what we got here, which is kind of nice. The explosion effect looks really good too, but I mean that bazooka effect looks pretty menacing. So I really like this one. It works well. You know, the only problem, as mentioned earlier, is the seam line and the back piece, but it's not very noticeable in a pose like this. So it's one of those ones where just be careful with angles, and it's pretty easy to avoid. So with the Robot Spirits effect part set, it's something to get if you tend to pose your figures in fighting poses, where they're kind of battling it out with each other. That's mainly what this set is geared toward. Now there are some firing effects, as you saw, and a couple other miscellaneous pieces there, but mainly this is for combat poses. So if you're that type of figure collector where you pose them like that, this set's really, really great. It's modular. There's a lot you can do with it, countless amounts of combinations you can do, and if you're good at posing your figures, unlike me, you can do a lot with these pieces, and angles are everything, so you can make them look really, really good. You know, I think my favorite thing out of this set is, of course, the bazooka firing effect, but the piece that looks like a mobile suit's been shot through with a beam rifle, I really like that set. I think it looks really nice. The bigger explosion effects that are modular, where it can be attached to a shield or something, or the mobile suit's head, I think that's a really neat idea. The stab through effect, kind of like what we got in the Alex and Zaku 2 Kai set, or not set, but you know, with those two figures, you know, that's a neat little addition there. So I mean, there's just a lot you can do with it, and there are a couple drawbacks. You know, the frail parts on some of them. The clear pieces that go around the waist tend to limit the waist articulation quite a bit, so it kind of limits posing to some degree. But otherwise, I mean, it does what it needs to do. I picked up the set for $30, and I think it's worth that. It comes with a lot. And let me know in the comments what you think about it, what you would have liked to have seen in the set, or what your favorite pieces are if you do own it. And be looking for some more reviews now that things are being able to be shipped overseas. I should be getting in some really cool stuff like the Perfect Gundam and the Act Zaku. I know some of you have been asking about the Act Zaku, so I should have that pretty soon here, so fingers crossed. I will see you guys next time. Thank you for supporting my channel. There's a couple other channels to check out linked below, like Umbrellarocks, who is a video game streamer, or Hey It's K, who does a lot of really cool customizations. And for individual reviews on all these figures that are in this review, you can check out links below. Thank you guys, and have a good day and be safe.